Today we're gonna expose all the things that you might be doing wrong when you're keeping reptiles.
Oh, she looks like she's kind of being kind of mean. Just put her away.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I don't really want to get picked today, so let's put her back in.
In actuality, when an animal is a little bit defensive like Lucky and is striking and stuff like that, the worst thing you could do is kind of just put it away right away if you're trying to tame it out. Now, with the species like an Amazon tree boa, oftentimes they won't get docile. So in this case, maybe putting it back isn't the worst idea, but if you have a snake and you want it to be a pet snake and it's a little bit defensive, likes to strike a little bit, if you put it back in the cage every time it strikes, you're actually teaching that animal that all I have to do is strike, you're gonna put me back in the cage. So if you could keep it out and actually work it, you're actually training the animal to not bite, not get what it wants. You don't want that stimulus response. Strike back in the cage, what is it gonna do? It's gonna strike again, right? So keeping it out and training it shouldn't strike is gonna help you build a bond with that snake.
We do a snap. Oh, yeah, good job. See, you want one too? Yes.
Connie, what are you doing?
I'm feeding the frillies, the baby frillies.
Why don't you just like feed them? You know, just put that there and then, hey guys, look at all these worms.
Leave the whole thing in there?
Yeah, you know, make sure they're eating.
So one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is this right here, where you overfeed your animal. A reptile oftentimes will be an opportunistic feeder, meaning that if the food is available, it's going to eat. And if you give it too much food, it's going to get obese. And the biggest problem with reptiles' longevity in captivity, where they don't live a long time, is overfeeding. Oftentimes, snakes that should live 30 years only live 12 or 15 years because they're being overfed. Same thing with monitor lizards and a whole host of other reptiles. So make sure you're feeding your reptile the proper amount, and don't just keep thinking like, oh, it's hungry, I've got to feed it more.
You're hungry.
I'm not.
Eat the worm.
He's a big one. Oh, he's a good boy. You want kiss a kiss? You love mama? Can you say mama?
Connie, he doesn't care about your love and affection.
He does.
I thought he's not running away.
He's not doing anything. He loves.
There's actually something that's called anthropomorphism, which basically just means that humans are applying their kind of human characteristics to animals. Now, I do think animals, you can create bonds, and reptiles, you can create bonds, and they have emotion to them, but they're not humans, you know, and oftentimes a snake or a tortoise or a lizard, you know, an owner will literally think it's like a puppy dog or like a little human, and it wants affection and it wants all these things. Again, I do think you can create bonds with them, 100% I believe that, but you can't actually put the fact that they're not reptiles into it, right? They're not humans, they have different emotions than humans, and they act differently. And oftentimes people make the mistake and think that their pet reptile is actually human, which couldn't be further from the truth.
Now go ram Mike.
Hey, oh God, check out all these animals I just got from the expo down there. Just 3. I mean, I wanted to get probably like 50, 60.
Don't you already have like a lot at home?
I mean, a couple things, not too much.
Mike, you're always at the gym. You're working full time here.
And then some.
Now you gotta clean your condo.
Yeah, they can just
How are you-
live at the condo.
How are you gonna have time for all these animals?
What are you talking about? They're reptiles. They're really easy to pet.
One of the mistakes that a lot of people make, and coming from me, it's a little bit weird because I've kept tens of thousands of animals throughout my career, but the truth is that I was always prepared to keep those animals. Oftentimes people get into the reptile hobby and they just start buying animals and they can't really care for them, or maybe they don't even know how to care for them. They just have an obsession, and I know how it is. We always say that buying reptiles is like eating chips. You can't just have one, you know. Once you get one, you're like, oh, I gotta get more and more. But it's really important not to overdo it because it's not good for the actual animals, right? If you have too many animals that aren't being cared for, that's a bad thing. Make sure you always dial it back. Make sure every time you add a new animal that you're in a position that you can actually care for. That means caging, that means husbandry, that means your time, that means your availability to food. All of those things, it's super important because the last thing we want is reptiles, or any animal for that matter, to be kept in an environment that they're not cared for.
Look how cute he is. You know, I don't even know where to put these or what even kind of enclosures to put them in.
Mike, you didn't think about anything, did you?
This kind of piggybacks on the last point that I made, is it's so important to make sure that you have an enclosure before you get an animal. You know, we've all made the mistake before where we've gotten an animal and then be like, oh, now I've got to figure out where to put it. It's always best to err on the side of having the enclosure ready and having all of your knowledge, do all your research, the care you need, the food you need, the sources, everything, so that your animal is going to be well cared for. Again, we've all made the mistake before. I'm not going to say I haven't done it, but I really try to make sure that I always have the proper environment before I get the animal, not afterwards.
Mike, check out this cool animal I shipped from China.
What do you mean you shipped it from China?
I mean, I got it from China. From the wild, he's from China.
Why did you get a
Mandarin,
wild
maybe?
caught Mandarin snake?
Oh, he speaks Mandarin.
And Mandarin rat snakes are a great example of what I've talked about before. During the 90s and early 2000s, tons and tons of Mandarin rat snakes are being shipped in from China. 99.9% of them were going to perish because they just didn't do well in captivity. Now that they're captive bred, they do absolutely amazing. Listen, there are options that you have to work with wild-caught animals when there's, let's say, there are no captive, and you're trying to propagate them in captivity, and you have no choice but to do something from the wild. But if you can get captive bred bred animals. Always go for the captive bred animals because they're going to be more habituated, they're going to be more socialized, they're going to do better in captivity. Not to mention, we want to always save the environment. You know, those animals in the wild are important in the wild, not in someone's enclosure. So taking animals out of the wild is never a situation that I agree with. Unless, again, you have a captive propagation program, then you need new bloodline or you need stock to actually proliferate them, and then it's okay. If not, always buy captive born.
Yeah, Connie.
I'm sorry, I was stupid. Mike, get away from me.
Look at the snake.
No, I don't like it.
It's just a little snake.
Get away from me.
I'm coming to get you, Connie.
No.
Yes.
Get away from me.
Stop! You don't scare people with snakes. Here at the Reptarium, and I'm sure you guys have all heard about all the people that are terrified of snakes because their brother or their sister chased them around when they were young with snakes and actually scared them to death. It can traumatize people at an early age to where their entire life they're afraid of a snake. Never use a snake as a prop to scare somebody. We don't want that. We want people to love snakes. We don't want people to hate them. And listen, our whole purpose in life is to get people to love snakes. So don't ever scare people with snakes, Mike.
Naughty.
Not even fake ones? Just
Really,
hold it.
Joker
It just
freaks me
goes
out.
around your
It
neck.
freaks me out. I don't
Just
like it.
don't.
No.
Just put them around your neck. Stop being a
I
baby.
don't want to.
So it's super important not to push people when they're a little bit uncomfortable with reptiles. So we always say here at the Reptarium, you can come in and you can walk around and you don't ever have to touch a snake unless you want to touch a snake. Always let people work at their own pace, because if you try to force somebody to hold a snake, it actually can instill more fear into them, right? So if you let them do it at their own thing, maybe a little touch first, and then eventually maybe hold, then eventually around the neck, something on that line. You got to take it slow and you got to take it at their pace. Every person is going to be different. Some people come in here and say, I'll never hold a snake, and within 10 minutes they're holding every snake in the place. Some people come in here and it's not until the end of the hour they're like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and give it a go. But almost all the time, if you let them go on their own pace and you just try to educate them, to get them over their fear, they will almost always get over their fear and give it a shot. But don't ever force
I
them.
look like such a bully in this video.
You are.
Hold the snake.
But this is what it usually looks like. So you might as well let the people know.
Why is Jean's open? Why is it not locked?
Oh.
Where's Jean?
I forgot. I didn't feel like closing it because it's like to open it, close it, open it, close
It's
it.
not supposed to be about how easy it is for you. We got to make sure the animal lives. Where's the snake now?
He's probably on vacation in Miami by now.
The one thing I can tell you is that snakes are escape artists. So make sure that whatever enclosure you have some sort of secure locking system. It's really important, because if that cage doesn't lock or you don't have some sort of system that's going to keep that animal inside, it's going to find its way out. And trust me, I speak from experience. We've accidentally left cages unlocked and the snakes always seem to escape. Now we have a protocol here where we check the locks 3 different times by 3 different people to make sure that every enclosure is locked. Because listen, you don't want your snake to escape. It's not good for your snake. It's not good for anything around. Not to mention it's irresponsible. So make sure your enclosure has a good secure lock on it.
You'll be really lucky if your snake doesn't escape. Hello, little Nova. How are you doing today? Ah, it's nice and warm in here today.
Did the lights just go on?
I don't think we just lost power.
What are we gonna do?
I don't know. I didn't think that far ahead. How are we gonna keep Nova warm? How are we gonna keep everybody warm?
What do you mean you didn't think that far ahead? Have these animals.
Well, like, we have a generator in the basement, but like,
Not
I can't
hooked up?
see where it's at.
Well, then what good is it?
Why
I
didn't you
don't know.
plan it?
Why don't I plan it?
You should always have an emergency plan no matter what happens, whether the power goes out, whether there's another disaster that happens. Always have a backup plan, especially if you're in a colder climate. It gets cold during the winter time, and let's say your power goes out for a while. Whether that's, you know, heating pads, whether that's an emergency generator, whether it's a place you can take your animals. Always have an emergency plan for everything, because you never know what's going to happen. And when it happens, you want to be prepared for it.
I can see again.
We'll take good care of you. Don't worry, Nova.
I'll keep you warm.
Oh.
Time to get out my favorite big snake. A nice 16.5 foot, 130 pound reticulated. Nothing I like doing more than when I'm alone. Big girl. Getting so big. Snake time. Exercising by myself. I absolutely love this big girl. Somebody help me. I can't breathe. She's squeezing. Somebody help. I can't breathe.
This is such an important rule that we always talk about here at the Reptarium, and we have been doing it for 25 years. If you have a snake that's over about 6 foot, you should always have someone either helping you with that snake or at least within earshot, just in case something happens. Snakes aren't killers or anything like that. But a snake like Gemma here is a heavy snake. It's a very strong snake. It's just muscle and bone. And you could get yourself in some trouble if she's just hanging on. She could be hanging on to you like you're a tree, but she could be literally choking you because she's just hanging on super tight. So you always want to have someone within earshot. In particular, with a snake this size, you should have a second person on site right there with you handling it, because we don't want anything in the media where someone gets hurt. That's not good for the reptile exposure for sure. So definitely always have 2 people when handling a snake over 6 foot.
Wait, Mr. Brian. Mr. Brian, you gonna help me? Nope. Okay, great. Somebody help!
Chicky. I know it's my boy Chicken Strip. We love the chicken strip.
The macaroni with the chicken strip.
Yeah, buddy. You want another one? Or you gotta swallow that one. Another one?
What are you feeding?
Chicken strip.
Didn't you feed him chicken yesterday?
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, didn't you feed him chicken the time before that?
Yeah, he loves chicken.
So are you just feeding him
I
chicken?
mean, his name's Chicken Strip.
Mike, I don't think that's a good idea.
So it's super important to vary your diet when it comes to most of your reptiles, you know, and especially when it comes to lizards, tortoises, turtles, stuff like that. Even with snakes, we vary the size of the meal to give them a little bit of enrichment. But when it comes to monitor lizards, as well as most other lizards, turtles, and tortoises, if you're not varying their diet, there's a lot that can happen with it. You don't want to feed monitors just chicken. You don't want to feed them just rodents. You want to really vary it up as much as you can. The more variety that that animal has, the healthier it's going to be in the future.
His name's Chicken Strip. I don't understand.
I hope that these tips actually will help you not make the mistakes that other people have made, including me over my 35 years of working with reptiles. We want you guys to have the best opportunity to take care of your animals to the best quality and have happy, healthy, long lives. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, smash that like button, always subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, there's a playlist that you can watch all kinds of videos. You can also hit that subscription button. It would mean a lot to me. Also, hit that like button while you're down there. Have a wonderful day, Reptile Army. Remember...
Oh.